Good day everyone, I am Fishan Danlagfurater presenting a published research related to my thesis study. So, the published research is entitled Growth Performance, Blood Dynamics, and Sensory Characteristics of Broilers Fed with Madre de Agua or Tricanthera gigante leaf meal. So, the original author of this research is Freddy O. Lipate. Introduction. Broiler chicken plays a vital part in the provision of protein required by a man to meet his daily protein requirement, and the most popular species reared is broiler because the capital in broiler business is swiftly returned. After all, broilers are reared for a short period, fast converters, efficient feed converters, and unlike pigs, are not discriminated against both religiously and nutritionally. However, the main problem that challenges the broiler raisers is the unstable and high price of feed ingredients. Approximately 70% of the total production goes go to the broiler feeds, hence are part of major costs in modern broiler production, according to Sogiharto 2018. Any increase in the prices of feeds would result in a rise in total cost of production and a subsequent decrease in profit of the broiler industry. Latest research suggests that incorporation of byproducts of agro-industry can lessen the cost of a protein and energy source of feed ingredients, according to Sugiharto and Rajitkar 2019. On the other hand, the high fiber content and low protein content might limit the digestibility of such feed ingredients, according to Sugiharto et al. 2018. This may be an option to lessen the burden of using expensive source of protein as part of the ingredients in a broiler diet. Some research observations suggest that leaf meal encompasses numerous bioactive substances, according to Vergara Jimenez et al. 2017, which has a positive effect on the health conditions of most animals, according to Ramarao et al. 2019. Hence, using leaf meal as source of feed ingredients may not only lessen the cost of production, but it can also boost the wellness of almost all animals. Nevertheless, broilers seem to respond differently on the percentage of inclusion of leaf meal. Subject to the source of leaf meal and ratio of combinations and based from recent findings, the inclusion of 20% moringa of oleifera can increase the rate of growth of broilers, according to Alinidawi et al. 2016. Similarly, the addition of 10% Alcornea cordifolia leaf meal is suggested without causing any detrimental effect on the performance of most animals, according to Olorontola et al. 2018. Nowadays, as feed price continues to rise, especially the protein-rich feed ingredients, animal nutritionists suggest right proportion of leaf meal as a source of feed ingredients must be included in broiler daily rations, according to Cebola et al. 2019 and Ubo et al. 2018. The feed crisis facing the poultry industry in our country strongly indicates the need to investigate and utilize cheap and easily obtainable feed resources. One of such feed resources is Trichantera gigante. The leaves may be fed to the farm animals as a solution in the form of leaf meal. According to Wazive et al. 2018, that supplementation of 6% Trichantera gigante on the corn grains substituted substituted by rice byproducts can improve egg quality and egg production of layers. In contrast, the inclusion of 15% Trichantera gigante leaf meal on the diet of broilers obtained the best feed conversion efficiency compared to commercial feeds which obtained the highest feed consumption resulting to the poor FCE or conversion efficiency and return above feed and chick cost according to Francisco and Buctot 2018. Morbos et al. 2016 found that although Trichantera gigante leaf meal is palatable, it is not enough to augment the nutrients requirements for a similar weight gain with the commercial feeds. Thus, it is suggested that 5 to 10% is realistic. The result of the study would be of help to poultry farmers, especially those living in far-reaching areas, by offering them alternatives to reduce their feedstuffs expenses by utilizing this unconventional protein and energy source. Hence, the need to conduct this research to investigate the potential use of Trichantera gigante leaf meal in broiler production. Generally, the study was made to assess the performance of broilers' feed ration with varying percentage of Trichantera gigante leaf meal. Specifically, it aimed, first, to find out the best percentage of Trichantera leaf meal inclusion with that influenced the performance of broilers, and secondly, to find out the economics of using Trichantera gigante leaf meal in terms of return above feed costs. Methods: experimental poultry house. Before the arrival of chicks, a dimension of 15 by 10 feet per cage brooder house was constructed to accommodate the 120 heads of day-old cub broiler chicks at 10 heads per cage for the brooding period. The brooder cage was provided with an old newspaper that served as feeding troughs for the chicks in the first 3 days of their life. It was changed daily to avoid the mixture of feces with the feeds. The brooder cage was provided with a 15-watt bulb to warm up the chicks during cold weather and night time. The brooder cage was curtained with canvas to avoid exposure to extreme conditions. The brooder house was also used as a growing house in order not to bring stress to chicks when transferring. Collection and preparation of Trichantera gigante leaf meal. Leaves of Trichantera gigante were gathered within the vicinity of Isabela State University, Ichagi, Isabela. The leaves were totally air-dried at 12% moisture content for 5 days and finely ground. Ground Trichantera gigante leaves were mixed with other ingredients to compose the home mix feeds for the broilers based from the imposed treatments. Experimental design. The chicks were dispersed by 4 treatments and was repeated 3 times with 10 chicks per repetitions. It was arranged as follows. Treatment 1 or control. Home mix ration without Madre de Agua or Trichantera gigante leaf meal. Treatment 2. Home mix ration with 5% Madre de Agua Trichantera gigante leaf meal. Treatment 3. Home mix ration with 10% Madre de Agua leaf meal. Treatment 4. Home mix ration with 15% Madre de Agua leaf meal. Health and sanitation. The poultry house was cleaned daily. The waste of the experimental birds was disposed properly to prevent contamination and infestation of pests and existence of diseases. Feeding management. The experimental birds were fed with home mixed starter feeds with Trichantera gigante leaf meal every feeding period based on the imposed treatments in treatment 1, treatment 2, treatment 3, and treatment 4. Feeding was ad libitum and light was provided to facilitate good sight when feeding at night. Feed formulation. An all-mush starter 20% crude protein home mix feeds were formulated in the study. The ingredients used were the common feedstuffs, which are abundant in the locality with the inclusion of the different levels of Trichantera gigante. Providing drinking water. Fresh water was made available to the birds at all times. There were no multivitamins, antibiotics, and other synthetic chemicals that were mixed into the drinking water. Results and discussion. A. Parameters. First, body weights. A not significant result was recorded starting the initial week up to the third week of the experimental study. However, a highly significant result was obtained by treatment 3 and treatment 4 on the 4th, 5th, 6th week of the study. The data showed that the inclusion of 10% and 15% Trichantera gigante leaf meal produced the heaviest body weights. Second, the gain in weight. The total gain in weights at the sixth week of the study was significantly affected by the inclusion of Trichantera gigante leaf meal on their diets. The birds fed with treatment 3 or 10% and treatment 4 and 15% Trichantera gigante leaf meal obtained the highest total weight gain, which with means of 1533.30 grams and 1626.84 grams respectively. Third, feed consumption. A not significant result was observed on the feed consumption of the birds from the first week up to the 6th week of the experimental study. This result was synonymous with the finding of Nagshi et al. 2014. Moreover, the inclusion of 5 to 15% azolla did not significantly affect the broilers' feed consumption. Siswanto et al. 2017, who conducted an economic analysis of male broiler chickens of feed diets supplemented with 6 to 18% Salvinia molesta. However, a highly significant result was noted on the cumulative feed consumption of the birds, which means minute differences, if accrued, will appear. Treatment 1 with a mean of 2,548.33 grams consumed the highest amount of feeds, which was comparable with treatment 2 with a mean of 2,530.63 grams. Treatment 4 consumed the least amount of feeds with a mean of 2,449.33 grams, which was comparable with treatment 3 with a mean of 2,476.13 grams. Fourth, feed conversion ratio, or FCR, and feed conversion efficiency, FCE. The feeding of TGLM, or Trichantera gigante leaf meal, significantly influenced the feed conversion ratio, wherein the birds in treatments 4 and 3 had the better FCR, which means of 1.51 kg and 1.69 kg respectively. The inclusion of 15% and 10% TGLM has a comparable effect which were better than treatment 1 and treatment 2 because it needed only 1.51 kg and 1.69 kg respectively to produce 1 kilogram of weight, while T2 and T1 need 1.87 kilogram and 1.97 kilogram respectively to gain 1 kilogram of weight. A highly significant result was recorded on the FCE of the broilers. The broilers fed with 15% TGLM had the highest FCE with a mean of 66.40%. It is implied that birds affected with 15% TGLM were efficient in converting feeds into a kilo of meat. The birds fed with 10%, 5%, and 0% TGLM were comparable and had the lower FCE with a means of 59.20%, 53.60%, and 50.20% respectively. Fifth, dressing percentage. The data showed the birds' feed duration with different levels of TGLM had no variation with the birds in the control. A not significant result was observed on dressing percentage with and without giblets, with the mean values ranging from 73.9% to 74.35% and 67.67% to 69.68% respectively. 6. Pancreas and liver weights. The result showed the different treatments did not affect the weight of the pancreas as reflected by a not significant result with means of 3.5 grams to 5 grams. A similar result was obtained in terms of the weight of the liver, wherein the liver of the broilers fed with TGLM and the control had the same weights of the liver with means of 33.47 grams and 43.33 grams. 7th, return above feed and chick costs. Based on the financial evaluation, broilers fed with 50% TGLM obtained the best return on investment among the imposed treatments, with 110.23 peso, followed by treatment 3 with 96.8 peso with 78.37 peso. The less return of investment was recorded by treatment 1, which is controlled with only 70.25 peso. Blood dynamics. First, red blood cell or RBC count and bulk cell volume or PCV. Analysis of variance shown a not significant result in RBC count and PCV of broilers fed with varying percentage of TGLM with treatment means ranging from 42.82 cells or mu L letters to 42.99 cells and mu letters and from 35.35% to 37.92% respectively. The ABC or the red blood cells counts and the PVC of the different treatments were under the normal values, which range of 40.24 plus and minus 4.21 cells, and mu letters for RBC count and 36 plus and minus 1.5 degrees for PCV. C. Sensory characteristics. The sensory evaluation of broilers' feed ration with varying percentage of trichanthiregigante leaf meal, or TGLM, was conducted by the group of 50 taste panelists as to appearance, odor, taste, tenderness, juiciness, and acceptability of cooked meat of broilers' feed ration with different levels of TGLM. The data showed a not significant on the general appearance, juiciness, and tenderness of oven. So, to continue, the data showed a not significant result on the general appearance, the juiciness, and tenderness of oven-cooked meat of broilers, fed with varying percentage of TGLM, and was rated like very much by the taste panelists. However, a highly significant result. Conclusion. Based from the result of the study, it was concluded that the inclusion of 10% and 15% of trichanthiregigante leaf meal on the diet of broilers was economically viable in broiler production because it obtained appreciable result in terms of body weight, gain weight, feed conversion ratio, and feeds conversion efficiency. No toxic effect in the inclusion of TGLM on the ration of broilers as manifested on the significant result on the weights of pancreas and liver as well as the blood dynamics, red blood cell count, and packed cell volume. The inclusion of 15% TGLM in the diet of broilers obtained the highest return above feed and cheek cost. The acceptability of the broiler's meat in terms of the different parameters and the sensory evaluation were like extremely and like very much, which means the inclusion of TGLM, especially at 15% level in the diet of broilers, were appropriate as per evaluation of the taste panelists. For recommendation of future works, a follow-up experiment applying a higher level of TGLM to verify whether or not it can perform well at optimum level is recommended to come up with more conclusive results. And that's all. Thank you. I am Vishen Denral Ferrate